Thank you, Donna, and thanks to Girl Scouts for hosting today's event. This is amazing. I cannot get over how gorgeous this renovation is. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I think Donna did already. I'm Hillary Topper. I'm from HJMT Public Relations, and I have been involved on both ends as the influencer and also the public relations person looking for influencers. And this panel today we're going to talk about, it's not really about so much Instagram as getting influencers involved in your brand and helping your brand to take off and get to the next level. I've been involved in one of the earliest campaigns that I was involved with was the Google Glass campaign. That was back in 2011. I was an original Google Glass Explorer, and I entered a contest. So Google did it right from the get-go, right? We had a contest, and the contest asked people to tweet why they wish they had glass. And I wrote, I wish I had Google Glass so that I can wear it during the Diva Half Marathon. Never heard back from them, and other people were getting it, and I was getting really angry, everybody else is getting it but me, So anyway, so what I did was I tweeted out, if I had glass, I said, I want my Google Glass more than my MTV. And then I heard from them. And they gave me the opportunity to purchase a pair of Google Glass for $1,500. That was my opportunity, right? Anyway, the reason why I say Google did it right was that they recruited 800 people to pay $1,500 for Google Glass to go out and show the world what Google Glass could do. These people, we weren't paid, we paid Google, for this opportunity. And everything that we did, we wrote, with glass, or, it had the hashtag glass or Google Glass on it. And that's how, I think that was one of the earliest campaigns, although I would say that influencer campaigns have been around as long as I've been around. I've been in PR now for over 30 years, and we've always recruited celebrities or, big name people to help represent brands. But the difference now is that we're going to the community and we're looking at people who are just regular people who have very, very big following on Instagram, in particular Instagram, and some of the other networks as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the two speakers. I did want to also mention one other thing before I do that. So I'm an influencer for quite a few brands. One of the brands is Balega Socks. And I just want to say that certain brands know how to do it right. They know how to do it right because they engage in the community. They get their influencers involved so that they feel a connection with the brand. And that's what Balega Socks does. They have contests every month. They send us updates every month. They give us free products all the time. I get boxes of socks. I mean, it's just like nonstop with the socks, right? So I think one of the things I just want to mention, and hopefully one of the takeaways, and I'm sure the panelists will, give you lots more takeaways, but from my perspective, is that if you do embark on a blog ambassador or, an influencer campaign, the most important thing is just to bring them into your world and really get connected with them and make them feel like they're part of your community, because that's going to make all the difference. They're going to want to do more for you if they're part of your world. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the two panelists. Thomas Palladino is an account supervisor at Edelman PR in Manhattan. And Zoe Topper is an account supervisor at Weber Shadwin. in Manhattan as well. I always get that wrong, and she like gives me a hard time about it, but Weber Shandwick. I want to talk, Thomas, you know, if you could just give us a little bit about your backgrounds, that would be great.
So, I'm recently at Edelman, a public relations firm. Before that, working in the consumer space on different big lifestyle brands like Lysol, Durex, so in the sexual well-being space and the mom space, and then Nivea Men, which is more like a grooming line, but across those, doing different public relations campaigns, and then specializing in, you know, micro-influencers and macro-influencers, which we could talk about later, really to hone in on the communities of who we're trying to target to.
And Zoe, can you explain your background a little bit?
Yeah, so I am an account supervisor at Weber Shandwick. I have worked with really big consumer brands from Budweiser, Nexus, which is a Unilever brand, Electrolux and Frigidaire, which are kitchen appliances, Philips, Nespresso, just a number of different brands across a ton of different spaces. And I would say like in the last year or 2 years or so, we've seen this like big transition towards working more with influencers than media. And so I've really taken a big role in kind of leading the influencer relations on the consumer side. So I've worked across my accounts doing that, and I'm excited to talk to you about it today.
So, I guess this is for both of you guys. You know, can you explain what the difference between an influencer is, a brand ambassador? Is it the same thing?
Yeah. I think they could be similar. So a brand ambassador, I think, is typically paid. And they're paid to, you know, talk about your brand more, where an influencer, there's going to be times when you pay them, but they're going to be more of like your voice out in the community and not so much a representative of the brand. So I think a brand ambassador might either sit in-house or they might have like an exclusive partnership with just you, while an influencer could be working with many different brands and talking to different communities. So I think that's what I would say the big difference is.
And Zoe, can you talk about what exactly influencer marketing is?
Yeah, so I think with the rise of social media over the past few years, you see this transition from people going more to social media to find their content, find their news, find advice, all of that. So you're seeing people, instead of picking up a magazine of Vogue to find the hottest new fall trends, they're going to Instagram to look at their favorite influencers to see what they're wearing, what they're doing versus what Vogue is saying. So I think that there is like that big transition towards making sure that you're not only, you know, working with media and making sure that they're in the loop on your product, but you're also working with influencers who are right for your brand, they fit with your brand, and they can talk about it in an authentic way. So I think there's definitely that shift. I don't know if you have anything to add.
I think there's like a trust level too.
Yeah.
Like I think that consumers are, you know, not, like you were saying, not picking up a magazine and trusting what, you know, like Parents Magazine is saying, but they're looking at a mom in their community who's actually, you know, on the ground there, who has kids their age, and it makes sense for them to lean into like what they are doing and what they're using and where they're going more than, you know, a magazine writer who sits in New York City and might not even have kids. So I think that's where that shift is going.
And I think that there's like multiple forms of influencers. So I think like if you look at Twitter, some people who would say like our influencers may be a reporter. So like people on Twitter may follow like their favorite New York Times reporter or their favorite like Sports Illustrated reporter, but they may not follow like the actual publication. So like say for Twitter, like those people are really important in like making sure that they tweet about it versus like writing a full story. But then you can go to Instagram where it's more of like lifestyle or food, or like there's so many different verticals where it's more like visual focused. And then maybe on Facebook, you have like a friend who is, you know, constantly talking about like new restaurants or something like that. Like that person could be an influencer as well. So it's important to like look at all of those different verticals and capture all of them.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we always miss is that like an influencer, it doesn't have to be someone who has like millions and millions of followers. They could be someone in your community who has a few hundred that is actually getting engagement with people in your community. So I think while an influencer on a national level is always nice, I think if you're a community-based organization or brand, those are the people that you want to go after and want to capture. The ones who are in your community talking about what they're doing every single day or every single weekend. They're the ones who are actually influential to like your consumers.
You know, so why do you think brands have gone this route? I mean, you know, they're kind of shifting away from traditional PR to target media. They're going after the average person who has influencer, you know, capabilities. Why do you think that this is important for a brand?
I was gonna say, I think with the the transition from people reading newspapers and reading magazines towards people reading things online, there's a shift in focus where you're seeing that it's not that it's not important, but there's like a greater importance to be focusing on people online. So you're not only talking about like print writers or print writers, but you're also talking about like the online editors, the social media editors of publications. You're talking about influencers who are big in the social community. So there's like, I think with people going online, you have to focus your strategy online as well, because that's where the people are and that's where they're looking for their content.
Yeah.
So how do you go about finding these people? I mean, you know, everybody's on social today, right? Most people anyway, not everyone. I can't say everyone's on social. But a lot of people are on social media today. So how do you find these influencers in specific target markets?
I mean, I think it's definitely very difficult to find the right person, and I think whenever you're doing a campaign, you want to make sure that it's going to be a person that, you know, like aligns with your brand, has the right aesthetic, has the right feel, is talking in a way that's going to be like authentic to their followers. There's a ton of different like influencer agencies that can help you kind of find the right person. So you could say like, I'm looking for a female who has kids, who are under the age of 2, who like, you know, like are looking for these specific products. So you can find people in that way. But then I think you can also like look on your own and find people who are using hashtags or people who like other people follow. And I think like Instagram is good about doing, you can like click there's like a down button where you can see on each different like individual page like who's similar to that person. So you can kind of like look from there and like go from one person to the next until you find like the person that is right for your brand. But I think overall like it's important to find somebody who is not producing like a ton of sponsored content where it's like the page is like oversaturated with product posts. Somebody who has like a really engaged following. So sometimes you can tell engagement by how many likes and comments they get on every post, and then do a percentage of how many followers they have. So there's a lot of people out there who maybe have like 100,000 followers or more, but they're not getting engagement from their followers, and that doesn't make them very strong for a brand, because people may see it, but they're not interacting with it, they're not engaging with it, they're not like really having a reaction to it, so you don't really know how the content is performing. And then I think you want to work with people who have this authenticity, people who there's like this trust level between them and their followers. They understand what their followers are interested in, and they can really drive like what's going to work best on their platforms.
Yeah, and I would say too, I mean, look at different events that your either competitors are at, or influencers that your competitors are using, or people in your industry are targeting, or you know, you see a post that kind of makes sense for you. Those are the people you also want to go after. I think an influencer agency is always something fun to tap, but at the end, like there's sometimes not budget for that, honestly. It's sometimes could cost like a lot of money. So I think it's finding like a voice in your community, and even talking to like your peers and trying to figure out like who they're working with or who they've seen pop up on their Instagram page at different events, or you know, using different hashtags, or talking about a certain conversation that you want to get involved in. I think it's just following along those conversations, you'll see who is influential in them.
Now, there's been this whole shift. I mean, for a while it was influencers, and now it's micro-influencers, okay? What's the difference between an influencer and a micro-influencer? Is it that the influencer has 1 million people following them and 100 people following a micro? So can you explain that?
So I think that there's a few different levels of influencers. So a micro-influencer is somebody who has maybe like less than 100,000 followers. And this person, they may have, it's maybe less than somebody who has 1 million, but they have a super engaged community. So it's maybe more niche focused, more, I think you'll get like a little bit more for what you're working with. And these people typically charge less as well. But their content is super focused, super specific. Whereas somebody who maybe has over 1 million followers, they have this awareness factor, but they may not have the engagement that somebody who has like a little bit less have. But then I think that there's also this level of influencer who is like a super influencer, and I think that that's somewhat like a new term, where somebody may have 1 million followers, but they're not actually converting anything. It's just awareness. They don't actually really help brands in a way that's important. So it depends on like what you're really looking for and what the objective of your campaign is. If you just want awareness, you just want to get product out to a ton of different people, you might want to work with somebody who's more on the awareness side of somebody who has like a ton of followers. But if you're really looking for that engagement and you want people to convert, you may want to work with somebody who's more of a micro influencer whose community is known to act in what they're doing.
I think there was a New York Times piece recently about micro-influencers and education. There was Amazon actually was like one of the leaders in micro-influencers and targeting teachers. So teachers have become their own, micro-influencer in a sense because they're influencing kids every single day, and they're influencing the parents around them and quite frankly what they bring into the classroom. So what Amazon was doing, which I think is like a really interesting case study, was they were targeting teachers across America who have, a following of maybe 500, but it's like those 500 people are the parents that are buying the products for the classroom. They're, doing the lesson plans with their children. So it made sense for a brand to kind of latch on to these teachers, which in a sense were micro-influencers that have really kind of like had this like grassroots Amazon program across the country. So you have a big brand working with a bunch of influencers with such small following, and you say like, okay, is that like good ROI? But the case study shows that like it is the strongest like push in sales for them because they're actually hitting the people who are buying their products and like using their tools every single day. So I think, like Zoe was saying, in terms of engagement, you're looking for people who, it's not always about this like big flashy number of followers or who's getting the most traffic out their page. It's about who's actually reaching your demographic and who's using your product or who's using your service, and that's who you want to be going after.
Right, so it's more about going back to the way it started with social media, where we would target people to or somebody would say on Twitter, I went to see this movie last night and it was fantastic, and their friends said, that movie was fantastic, and that person thought it was great, maybe I should go to that movie, right? So that's kind of the way it's happening, and it's evolved.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some campaigns, okay? So, Zoe, you're actually doing a campaign now for Nexus. Can you talk about Nexus, what they're doing, and who they are and what they're doing?
Yeah, so Nexus is a premium hair care brand owned by Unilever, and we recently opened a salon in New York. And this is the brand had this space for about 2 years or so, never opened. It was only really for like VIP appointments, whenever they had anybody coming that felt worthy of like opening the salon. So in May, they decided they're gonna open the space for the very first time. They're gonna invite media in and try to get appointments that way. And then we also did a big like influencer campaign. And so we worked with 8 like top tier New York based influencers, New Yorkers who are very much like in the know on like what was the hottest spots in the city. And basically, we paid them to come into the salon, get a service done, and then document their experience on social. So what we had them do is a blog post, an Instagram post, and then an Instagram story that documented their experience, like the moment that they walked in the salon to the moment that they left the salon with their like finished look. And what we found was that from this campaign, we had a number of calls to the salon that specifically referenced that they saw this campaign on Instagram and that they wanted to come in, use the same stylist that their favorite bachelorette celebrity had, and then also, like have that appointment done, come in and just be just like them. So with that campaign, it was really just to like build awareness, build word of mouth. But then an interesting thing that we found was that, yes, people were interacting with blog, they were interacting with Instagram, but the biggest interaction that we found was through stories. We found that more people were like swiping up to visit the salon page to see more about it than they were like liking the photo. So you could get like more of that like in-depth look than you would at just like a static image. And then separate from that, we did a non-paid program where we basically reached out to 150 New York-based micro-influencers who had like all under 100,000 followers, and we invited them into the salon just to get free services in exchange for posting on social. And I think what we found was that, yes, some were like definitely interested in coming in and getting a $300 service done, but others were also wanting to be paid to do that. And we didn't want to pay them just because we had spent our dollars on bigger influencers. So we focused only on the ones that didn't want to be paid. And what we found was that it really created this like word of mouth in New York. We had a number of them posting screenshots of comments that they got, asking them like where they got their hair done, which stylist that they used. So there was a ton of interaction among them, and we had like their friends reaching out to us and seeing if they could get their hair done. So it was a really successful program, and I think it's just something that we're continuing to evolve as we move into next year.
And Thomas, you did an interesting campaign with condoms.
Yeah.
With Durex.
So I worked on a Durex brand, which is condoms, and quite frankly, it's a very like taboo subject still in U.S. media. Even around my dinner table, and I try to bring it up to my family about what I do. But again, it's something that is important for our client, and quite frankly, important to youth, is staying protected. And for us, we wanted to think of something visual that was going to be flashy and that people would post about, and we honestly didn't have enough budget to actually pay everyone. So what we came up with was something that we thought they would post on their own that would be fun and engaging. And we created a giant 5-foot banana piñata that was filled with condoms. And so we sent this out to our influencers and our media during like a time where students are going back to school and they're thinking about what they need to bring into their dorm rooms and what parents should be actually packing for their kids to keep them protected and safe during the back to school season. And it got a ton of engagement. So it's not always about finding a service for someone. Sometimes it's about finding something that's like flashy and fun. And while condoms is something taboo and not something that we're always talking about, it got a ton of engagement. People loved playing with this piñata, and we're extremely surprised to find it open with condoms everywhere. And I think what it did was start a conversation between like their followers and in the community, and they were able to we gave them some statistics on STDs and staying protected, and they were able to give them to their followers to ask questions about what we were doing, or like, why the heck are you posting this video about a giant banana filled with condoms? And I think it made sense for us, and again, we didn't have a big budget to do like a paid program, but it got a ton of ROI because it was engaging, it was visually appealing, and it was fun. So I think it was a really successful campaign.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you actually account for sales based on that campaign?
So
Or stipend sales, I guess you could.
we can't account for any sales based on that campaign just because we didn't have any direct tie to sales. Like there wasn't a call to action to like immediately go and buy. It was more of an awareness campaign for us. It was something to start a conversation during like a timely season. And so yeah, it wasn't more of a sales play for this campaign, it was specifically awareness.
You know, I think that that's a good, thank you for bringing that up. I think that that's a good question, because that comes up a lot, even with my clients. Like, you know, I've got some smaller clients who say to me, well, if we do social media, campaign, how many people am I going to have as a client? You know, an air conditioning company, you know, how many people are gonna call me up and put air conditioners in their house, right? And the thing of it is that traditionally with PR, is that we create exposure. That's what we do. We create exposure, we get visibility, and that visibility and exposure is a long-term thing. It's not something that's going to get you, even when you're in the New York Times, there's no guarantee that anybody's going to pick up the phone and say, you know, I want to get your air conditioning company to redo my house. I mean, you're just not, it's just, that's not what you hire a PR firm for.
Yeah.
A PR firm is more for exposure and visibility. And I
Yeah.
think that's been notorious, the you know, people, you know, try to correlate the sales. You know, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It's all a combination, I think.
Yeah, I think social media is probably the hardest to, you know, figure out direct sales from, unless like you're doing something like in the Nexus Salon where you could actually equate bookings from a post. I think it's mostly about engagement, it's mostly about brand visibility, about creating a conversation.
Right.
So hopefully one day when someone's walking down a family planning aisle, they see two different brands and they choose something that, oh, you know what, I saw this funny campaign, I wonder what this product is about.
Exactly.
And I think it's creating a conversation in the back of their mind and just having that awareness that's always with them and like keeping top of mind to the people that you want to be top of mind to.
And I think just one thing to add, I think one way to help with ROI is to include a discount code that's specific to the influencer. So we've done a lot of times where we'll give them a specific tracking link that we can follow and see how many people are using that specific link. And then also we've given them a code that like includes their name and like say like Zoe 25, and if you use that code you get 25% off on the website. And we've actually seen a ton of redemptions that way. We do get like a lot of pushback from influencers in putting it in like the caption of their post versus putting it like in a story. So there is like a balance between like what the influencers are comfortable doing, but we have found that when they do put it in a story or in their post, we do see return on that.
Talk a little bit about the Lysol campaign that you worked with mommy bloggers.
So one of the brands I've worked with is Lysol, and as you can imagine, it's mostly cleaning, it's mostly child classrooms, and so our big focus was mom bloggers. So instead of traditional media, a win for our client was mostly working in this mom blog community where we're having mothers actually try and test the product, they're creating conversations in their community, and they're actually, you know, using the product on a daily basis. So we have done numerous campaigns with them where we're either seeding product to them and not paying them, honestly. You know, sending them product that they're actually going to use in their homes that they're already using. And then they would either post about it or, you know, you'd see them, you know, talking about it in a video where they're actually, you know, it could be months later and they're just cleaning their homes with the product that we sent them. But we've also done some campaigns about, you know, spreading awareness around back to school times. I think both of my clients, they were very focused in this one time period. But for them, again, it was trying to get on back to school supply lists. So there's been like a push for, you know, getting wipes or like disinfecting products off of school supply lists. So how can we kind of change the conversation? And it was targeting micro influencers in the form of mom bloggers and having them, you know, talk to their teachers about putting the product on supply list. We even partner with some mom bloggers who were, you know, school administrators or teachers in themselves who would talk about the product. But I think for that client, it made a lot of sense to target this one specific community who has a ton of engagement and, you know, huge followings where, you know, mothers are seeking other mothers for advice. They're looking for them to what products they're actually using in their homes. And I think it made sense for Lysol to be in that space. And they're a really fun group of people to work with, honestly. And you know, if you're in that space, if you're looking to have, you know, exposure in that space, those are the people who you should be targeting because they help create a conversation around a product or a service.
And so you also worked on an interesting campaign, Green and Blacks.
So Green and Blacks is a chocolate brand. It's a brand that's really popular in the UK, but a lot of people don't know about it in the US. So we were launching a new line here, and we really just wanted to build awareness about it. We asked a ton of people, nobody had ever heard of it, so we just wanted to focus on like bigger influencers who could just get the word out for the holidays. The new packaging was like, had these like ombre colors on it. It was like very different from what the line had in the past. So the brand wanted to tell more of like a design story and talk about how like, you know, you could bring this like amazing chocolate to like a holiday party, but you could also, you know, put it on your bookshelf or in your bar cart and have this like really cool design that's also like edible. So we partnered with a number of interior design influencers to style the chocolates on like a bookshelf or on their bar cart in a way that was going to be like really design like savvy and design focused. So this was like a very different, so interior designers talking about chocolate is like a little bit different and a bit of a stretch, but we did find is that like a number of people did purchase the product as a result of it. We worked with all of our influencers to include discount codes before the holidays. We saw like a number of traffic to the website, and it was an interesting campaign because again, it was completely new here in the US, and I think it was really successful in that way.
Cool. Now, let's talk about reporting. So you talked a little bit about ROI, you know, putting some kind of a discount code. Do you typically see influencers and micro-influencers, you know, providing you with reports?
So it's something that we now build into the contracts that we have with them. For Instagram, you can see like likes and comments, the number that they're getting there, so that's an easy one. For stories, since it's only up for 24 hours and it's metrics that they only have access to, we require that they provide that to us. Sometimes like that's the only way, like, or really that's the only way that you can get it. You know, what we found is that like say a post gets 10,000 likes, their stories could get 100,000 views. So there is a difference there, and like the reporting, the measurement is different. For blog, we use Cision or SimilarWeb to get like their unique visitors per month. But then we also ask them to provide us with page views, and those are very different as well. Their unique visitors per month overall to the blog could be one number, but the actual page views to the post that we did with them could be like significantly less. And that's something that we're seeing, but we have to get that information from them.
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same thing. I think it's hard sometimes to get like engagement and metrics if you aren't paying them, but it's something that you can track on your own.
Yeah.
And seeing again like how many likes, how many comments they're getting, how many, you know, different hashtags that you've provided them with that they're using. But other than that, I think, you know, it's more in the pay for play space. They like get full on metrics.
Now with the FCC, you're supposed to disclose when you get something for free or if you get paid, right? And that's also the case now with hashtags. Some people who are getting paid need to say that hashtag sponsor or hashtag ad. Do you find that to be the case or not really at this point?
So I think, so with the FTC, the biggest issue, I think it started with Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians and how they were posting a ton of content and they were not disclosing that any of it was paid for. So I would say about a year ago, or less than that, the FTC sent a letter to about 100 influencers telling them that if they did not disclose the relationships that they have with the brands that they're working with, they would be sued versus the brands themselves. So that was like a major moment in this industry, and it kind of brought to life to the influencers that they need to start being more clear that they are working with brands. So the FTC now requires a ton of different disclosures that you have to do, and they're like super specific. But first you have to like always disclose that you're working with a brand. They want it on Instagram to be above the fold. It should be like one of the first things that you're saying. It could either be something along the lines of like, I partnered with this brand to do whatever, or you could say like the hashtag ad, hashtag partner, hashtag sponsored. But again, there are like certain brands can do certain hashtags, depends on like how specific that you want to be. You also should not include hashtag ad or hashtag sponsored within a group of hashtags. It needs to be a hashtag that's on its own and separate, otherwise it's not clear enough for a consumer that it is paid. Now with Instagram, there is the new feature that says like in partnership with this brand, and that's like as of a month ago, it's very new, so I think it's like something that the FTC has to decide like if they're comfortable with that. But it's very much like it needs to be super clear that they were paid to do this. And even if they weren't paid to do it, or if they were provided with a free product, they are supposed to disclose that it was provided to them for free. So what we found with Nexxus, if we are paying for their service and not necessarily paying them to come to the salon, any content that they produce, they have to say, like, thanks Nexxus for providing me with this service, or they have to use hashtag ad even if they weren't paid. So it's this like tricky line now that you have to be kind of overly communicative about the relationship you have with the brand, otherwise you are going to be subject to FTC criticism.
These paid influencers used to be called shills, which has a very negative connotation. So I understand within the industry this FCC ruling is not welcome. On the other hand, I think consumers really need to know that this is not necessarily their personal opinion.
Right.
It's what they're being paid to say. Moving away from that, I'm a service marketer. Are there influencers for services rather than products?
I think it depends on the service. I think it's finding people, I think anyone could be an influencer for anything. I think that's like the broad answer. But I think you're finding people in your community who are either like using services similar, or it's something if they use like every day or for a specific reason that they would want to talk about. I think that you could find someone in an influencer community, it's probably going to be more on the micro-influencer side that will talk about using like a marketing service or, you know, any kind of service.
Do your
Yeah.
agencies represent anything other than products?
Yeah, I've done campaigns for like internet security. They've done campaigns for small businesses, you know, small business learnings, banking systems, credit cards, like so where it's more things like the actual services that they're using. And there is still a really strong influencer play there because they're using a service and they're gonna still want to talk about it. So it might not be, you know, this one product, you know, helped me clean my home, or this one product, you know, helped my hair look amazing. It's about how this one service helped ease a moment in my life, or helped create this experience in my home. I think it's just twisting the conversation a bit, but you could still find someone in the influencer community who would be a great ambassador for that service.
I was working on Verizon for a bit, and we were just really focused on getting, it was very specific, but we were focused on getting Hispanic millennials to sign up for Verizon versus being on like a lot of cheaper services. And what we did was we worked with Hispanic influencers, somebody who was a soccer player, somebody who was a beauty influencer. We worked with just a number of different people, and we brought them all together, we created video content with them, and we just put it out that way, and we had them kind of like promote the brand. So it wasn't necessarily like a product play, but it was like them coming to the store, we did content with them, like interacting with the customer service there. So it's just like figuring out what your story is and kind of figuring out like what's going to make the consumer interested in it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So do you find these influencers on your own, or do you go through these influencer agencies? How do you find them?
I think it's a mix. Like for Lysol and when I was working in like the mom blogger community, it was a community that I myself immersed myself into, and while I didn't belong, I found a lot of influencers that way and made friends that way. If you go on my Instagram, half of the people commenting on my photos are mom bloggers, and it's a really strange situation I find myself in. And my parents were always like, "Who is this woman commenting on your photo, like, wishing you happy birthday?" I'm like, "I don't know." But again, it's like seeking out those communities on your own. I mean, immersing yourself in a community on your own, and you'll see who's influential inside of them.
Yeah, I think you would also look at so if you found one influencer that you really like, you can look at maybe who's like liking their content, who's commenting on their content, like go from and like kind of look from there, and that's kind of how we find a lot of people. What we did for some of our paid content is we looked at who commented on like their photos being like, "Oh, I love Nexus," or "I love how your hair looks." And we reached out to them as well, and we're like, "Oh, we saw that you commented. We'd love to have you come to the salon, try it for yourself." And that was just a way to kind of build more people coming and find new people who we may not have found otherwise.
It's professional Instagram stalking,
Yeah.
basically.
In line with that, do you do damage to your own personal account when you spread yourself in different spaces? Like maybe the Instagram algorithm doesn't know who you are anymore. The people, or like the moms commenting on other posts. What's best practices, basically?
I think for me, I don't know. For my personal pages and things like that, I'm fine with letting whoever see it. I think I personally represent a lot of different spaces, like sexual well-being, different parent brands or different grooming brands. So my algorithm is definitely all messed up, but I don't mind that. I think it's makes someone more well-rounded when you're seeing different content across different verticals, and I think it makes you a smarter marketer when you're seeing what other different spaces are doing.
Yeah.
So you don't see a hit in your engagement or anything?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I do have a few colleagues that have they created their own account that's their name, PR or something like that. And what they do is they just follow the influencers that they want to work with or interested in working with, and they follow media that way as well, just so they can see what they're doing. So that doesn't really impact what their personal page is doing.
Can I ask about vetting a micro influencer? Many of us, myself included, do not have budgets to pay for an influencer. And we've used mommy bloggers in the past to help promote our product, Girl Scout cookies and Girl Scouts. But vetting them can be an issue because if they are a micro influencer and they are getting either payment or product or things like that, that may we have a reputation that we are trying to maintain about our organization. How do you do that? I mean, how do you vet them?
I think honestly, looking at past collaborations is really important because, again, for a Girl Scouts partnership, you might not want someone who's talking about condoms, honestly.
No.
It's not going to be someone who's
No
the same.
sexual or no sexual
Yeah,
comments
exactly.
or-
So I think it's, really looking into their past a bit and seeing what brands they've worked with, and then when you start initial conversations with them, you're these are the 3 no-nos. Have you ever worked with someone in sexual well-being? Have you ever, I don't know what other barriers you have, but I think it's being
religious issues, and we have
Yes.
So it's,
So
right,
I
about
think
doing
it's-
your due diligence,
Yeah.
basically,
And I
is
think it's
what you
being
want to do.
open about what your competitors are or what your do-nots are when you start engaging with them. And then you could see if this is going to be a fruitful partnership or not.
What about the influencer who finds you and decides that they want to follow you or they're going to take off your cause or your message? How do you control that? Can you control that is the bigger question, I guess. Really.
I think if they reach out to you and they're posting organically about the brand, there's not really a ton that you can do because you can't really stop them from having an opinion and from sharing. You can reach out to them to educate them on your brand and maybe give them the right messaging that you want them to say, but other than providing them with that information, it's kind of hard to really control it if you're not paying them.
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be like a sticky situation too, where if they're writing something bad, you don't want to go back and like stop writing something bad because then it will just escalate the conversation
Right,
even
exactly.
more. I think it's inviting them to have, like Zoe said, like an educated conversation about, you know, this is what we stand for. This is like our brand platform and pillars. Do you want to have an open conversation about that and learn more? And not so much like hitting these, like, you know, negative posts head on.
One other thing that we do, or two other things that we do is we just Google them and just kind of have like certain keywords that we'll like, Google their name with and see if they come up.
Find
Like
out where they live and
all
get
of
rid
the
of them.
details. But we can like their name, like, I don't know, like politics, like Donald Trump, like what are they saying about that? And if there's something that they're saying that's negative or doesn't really fit with the brand, like that's one way we can see. The other thing that we started doing in the last like 6 months or so is looking not only at like, so we would go through their feed, like look at all the content. Is like premium enough for us? Like does it have the right aesthetic? Does it have the right feel for the brand? So that's just like one way, like on a surface level. But then we look at not only like engagement rate on like regular content they produce, but on their sponsored content. Because their regular posts may get a ton of engagement, but the sponsored content that they do may not. So we go back and look for like a 6-month period and look what the engagement rate is for every single sponsored post that they do. If it falls below like a 1%, we won't work with them. And I think that that's really important. So to calculate the engagement, you do likes plus comments divided by their total following. If it's below like 1%, it's not the best. 2% is like very good and somebody that you want to work with. If they have over 2%, like definitely work with them. You know, video sometimes performs better, so like keeping that in mind. But like looking at static imagery, if it's like below a certain percentage, like it doesn't really make sense.
Do the formula again?
That formula that you use, Nancy?
Yep, it's likes plus comments, the number of likes, number of comments divided by their following.
Yes.
Have you ever had a campaign that's kind of backfired on you? In the sense that, I mean, you can't really filter too much of what influencers can say. So have you ever been involved in which did kind of go your way? I mean, the NYPD had a hashtag that totally backfired on them, so something like along those lines.
All my campaigns are amazing, and so I'm not sure what you're talking about. No, I think that it is hard and scary, like to like you know dip your toes into those waters. And I worked on like a travel brand years back that it wasn't so much like the campaign backfired, it just didn't catch on. So for us, that was kind of seen as like, you know, a hit to like the brand, and you know, we were trying to spread this message that really didn't catch on. And I think for us, I think we were drinking the Kool-Aid a bit too much, and then you had to take a step back and realize like, you know, why this wasn't performing well and making like the necessary tweaks to do so. So those have been my experiences. Like personally, I have never worked on a campaign that has like had, you know, negative backlash. But I think I've been at agencies where other clients have had negative backlash before, and I think it's, you know, you have to go in with a brand strategy that is really gonna work, or you know, you think it's gonna work, and it's being like honestly Kool-Aid immune a bit, where you know you have to be sitting around a table and one person is not speaking up about something that might not sound right or might not come off right to someone. It's always speaking up, and being like, we should not use this hashtag. It is, you know, I don't know, negative to a certain, you know, community or something like that. And I think it's always like, you know, vetting what you're doing before putting it out to the public is really, really important.
Sharon.
Hi. Back in the day with PR, we used to have contracts with people who were live people that something could happen. Now, anything can happen with the people that are doing these posts. Do you have a contract with them? Like, you say to them, hey, can we send you a free service? They say, yeah. But then do you have something in writing that says, well, now you're getting this product or this service and you'll do these things in return? And
Yeah. So for people that we pay, we have like a very specific contract that says like, you're gonna do one blog post, one Instagram post, one Facebook post, one story, that like, and then have like every single detail, like it's gonna include this messaging, it's gonna include these hashtags, it's gonna include like every single detail, and then we also lay out like, we wanna be able to use the content on our website, we wanna be able to engage with it on social, we wanna repost it, we wanna be able to, like, we want you to include proper disclosures, all of that. But for people that we're not paying, we actually do have them sign something that says like, it's a little bit hard because we have a salon, so we say like, you know, we're not liable like if something happens to your hair that is negative, but we do say like, you're getting a free service, you will include proper disclosures if you post about it. We will be able to engage with you on social, repost the content, put it on our website, and we have the rights to your content, and we have all of them sign it. We do get pushback from people saying, you know, like, I'm just coming in to get my hair done, like, why am I signing this really specific contract? We've had that a lot, and we can't, unfortunately, do that. I mean, it's hard for us because we're under Unilever, and they are more specific, but there can be like a little bit more flexibility, just if you like lay out in an email or something what you would require from them.
Yeah, I think I've worked on like both ends too, where we've had contracts for bigger campaigns and like bigger budgets, but for if I'm like sending product to someone just to like try and test, like I'm not sending them a contract with it. I'm just hoping they write nice things about it instead.
How have you incorporated charitable initiatives into your campaigns using ambassadors and influencers?
I think it's finding ones who are like-minded and, you know, using certain charitable campaigns already. It's for a brand that I've worked on in the past. They've done a number of CSR campaigns, and finding like influencers that are either already active in that community is really important, or have some kind of tie to that community already, just makes the message stronger. So I think it's, you know, aligning with someone who, you know, is already speaking about it on like a daily basis, and something that they hold deep to them actually makes like a really, really strong conversation that's going to be important to get like better engagement and to tell like a better narrative completely.
Yeah.
I have two questions, both technical. One is I've started Instagram in February, and I'm really happy with it. It's like moved the needle for me since then, for what I'm trying to do and get new clients. So my question comes to, when you're building your followers, stick to posts or do stories help better? Stories are almost a mystery to me, to be honest.
When I've talked to influencers, they've said that stories have actually been really helpful for them, because if you like tag a location, there's like people who can see it, you know, outside of the people that follow you. Or if you use specific hashtags within the story, then people like following the hashtag may see it as well. So I do think stories are important. It kind of gets you out there a little bit more. But Instagram is really hard for growing your platform organically. I think it's like just engaging with people, like liking other people's posts, like commenting on it. But it's definitely challenging.
Yeah.
And then, thank you. And I find it to be easier than most to find new people, just in my field. I've read that using all 30 hashtags works against you. Have you heard that?
I think it depends, honestly. I think we actually have different opinions on hashtags, because you use a lot of hashtags. I don't use much, but I think it's putting them in the comment or below the fold is really important, so it's not cluttering like your image or your platform. And like again, like you're not burying them, but in a sense it's just creating like a cleaner space that like people, when they want to go onto like a page, they want to follow people that have like cleaner aesthetics, and they want to have like a nice feed to look at. So I think it's using hashtags below the fold, I think is important, but like yes, still using them. But I don't know if like 30 is the right number. I think it depends on like the community and honestly like what you're trying to achieve. If you know your community is using 30 hashtags, then maybe it does make sense, but maybe only using like the top 10 that is actually going to get you engagement and traffic.
Yeah, I think it's also there's kind of like a way to hide it in the sense like if you post your caption and then you comment below with all of the hashtags, then it kind of like hides it from people like
Yeah.
looking at it. So it just will show like one comment and they won't see that it's just like a comment of hashtags. I mean, I do it personally and I think it helps a lot. Like a photo will go from having like 40 likes to having 100 just from people like following the hashtags and engaging with it. But most influencers that I work with, they do use like a ton of hashtags as well in the content.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to thank the panelists very much for being here. We're kind of like on a little bit of a time crunch, so thank you both for coming out from the city. And thank you guys for all coming out today. And, you know, we are having a big holiday party, right? When is that? Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Sharon got it. Sharon's job.
Okay.
First, thank you. So, first, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. From all of us.
Aw, thanks.
It- Social Media Association and everybody that was here. Thank you, we appreciate it. Presents
Thank
before
you.
talking.
I can just ask one more question,
Yeah.
Sure.
real fast.
Yeah.
Do you think, are you supposed to post like 3 to 4 times a day or once a day? What's your opinion? Like a business account?
I would say once a day.
Once a day, right?
I think the Instagram algorithm is changing. And I think if you are posting like, 3 to 4 times a day, like there's a sense that you could get buried.
Yeah.
And posting once a day, you're gonna get higher engagement on one post than splitting engagement across 3 to 4 posts. So I think it's smarter just to post
What
once a
about
day.
like morning versus night?
Yeah, is there a better time of the day?
I mean, I think it depends on who like your consumer is.
Yep.
So like for me personally, like I know my followers only are like looking at Instagram before they go to work. So like before 9 a.m. or like maybe like during lunchtime or like after work at like 7 p.m. So I like will only post stuff that like at that time.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hard now with the algorithm because you can literally post at any time and anyone sees it or nobody sees it. But I think it's just like taking a closer look at who your audience is and like figuring out like what time they're gonna be on Instagram.
I think testing a few posts too,
Yeah.
like posting on a Tuesday at 8 a.m., comparing it to how a Thursday at 8 p.m. works. And then it's like, you're trialing it and seeing where you're getting the higher engagement and where your followers are actually viewing your content, and then you could start building out a calendar from there.
Now, what if it was like we did like one on Instagram, then can we do like another post in the same day, like on Facebook, different content?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.